Good morning. As we continue our journey through the Old Testament, we begin 2 Kings today, chapters 1 through 3. 2 Kings continues this saga of the monarchs of Israel, the kings of Israel and Judah, and they're separated right now. And so the first 17 chapters talk mostly about the Judah, the kingdom of Judah, until the ending of that kingdom in 721 BC, and then chapters 18 through 25 continue this saga until the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. So, 2 Kings deals with the period from the 9th century to the 6th century BC, and the fall of both Israel and Judah happened. And Israel has been the 10 tribes, and Judah is the one tribe, and then the Levites are kind of between everything there. But so we have the continuing saga of the kings and the monarchs. And chapter 1 starts with after the death of Ahab, and we just finished talking about him yesterday. It says Moab rebelled against Israel, and so that's a little introduction as to what we're going to find out into chapter 3, when we get there. But Ahaziah, who was the king at the time, says fell through the floor of his room and was injured. And he sends some messengers to the prophets of Baal-zebub, this false god, this idol, to find out, well, am I going to survive these injuries, or is this going to be life ending? And as his messengers go, the word of the Lord comes to Elijah. And Elijah goes and meets these messengers and says, is there no God in Israel that your master, that your king sends someone to Baal, the prophets of Baal-zebub? And because of this, his injuries will be to his death, and go back. So they go back, and the king is surprised. Well, you're back so soon? Yeah, he said, this man met us and told us this. Well, what did he look like? Well, he was hairy, and he had a leather belt around his waist, and a hairy man with a leather belt. And the king said, it's Elijah the Tishbite. And I can almost hear, it's Elijah. Just some disdain in his voice of, this miserable Elijah is in their way again, kind of. So the captain, or the king then sends a captain of guard with 50 men to Elijah to have him come. And these meet a fiery death. Elijah said, if I'm a man of God, let fire come down, and it happens. And this whole group of men is destroyed by the fire. And that happens a second time, that the king sends these men out. And the king again then sends for the third time. And the captain of this guard comes and he says to Elijah, if my life and the life of my men have any meaning to you at all, let our lives be precious in your sight, And he knows what happened to the others. And he says, let our lives be precious. Let our lives be worth something to you. And the angel of the Lord then again appears to Elijah and says, go with him and talk to the king. So he does. He sets out, he goes down with him to the king, and he says to the king, same thing he'd said to the messengers, thus says the Lord, because you have sent messengers to inquire of Baal-zebub, this false god, the god of Ekron, is it because there is no God in Israel that you would do such a thing? Therefore you will not leave your bed, and this will lead to the grave. You will certainly die. And the word of the Lord happened. And he died there, and then his kingdom was there. He was succeeded by his nephew, no, by his brother rather, because he didn't have any sons at the time. And so then we kind of take a shift now from the kings way back to Elijah. And again, chapter 2 is a familiar story to us of the Elijah going up to heaven. And the word comes to him that his time is about to end. And Elijah says to Elisha, who we haven't heard much of Elisha, but we know from this that Elisha has been this servant and following and being with Elijah this whole time. So Elijah says to him, you stay here now, because I'm going to go, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel. And as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. What a faithful man. And then they get a little ways on their journey, and they come to, and the prophets here say to Elisha, the servant, don't you know that your master is going to be taken from you today? I know, be silent, I'm already aware of that. You don't have to tell me again, And Elijah again says to Elisha, stay here. And Elisha says again, as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. And I think that's an important thing to realize. He says, as the Lord lives. He is recognizing that God is a living God. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Moses, the God of, he's a living God. He's not just a statue, an idol, a figment of someone's imagination. He's a living God. And they go along the way, and they come to the River Jordan. And here's another part of the story that we kind of miss a little bit. We know of the parting of the waters of Moses on the Red Sea, but Elijah touches the waters of the Jordan. And he and Elisha go across on dry ground. And they get across, and there are 50 of the men of these prophets that are following at a distance, it says. And then suddenly there's this chariot of fire and a horse of fire that separate Elijah and Elisha. They come between them. And then Elijah is taken up in a whirlwind. And this is one of the other things that many times gets misspoken. We have this picture of Elijah going up into heaven on a chariot of fire. The chariot of fire separated Elijah and Elisha, and Elijah went up on a whirlwind. And I mean, it's just one more of those things. I mean, it's an interesting twist on things, but it's one more portion of the Bible that we sometimes have just a little bit of a mistake on how it goes about. And then and Elisha watches as long as he can, as Elijah is ascending on this whirlwind and calling out after him. And when he can no longer see him, he rips his own coat, his mantle, and takes up Elijah's mantle, realizing, showing that he's taking the responsibility that was Elijah's as prophet. He's going to carry on in Elijah's shoes. And he takes Elijah's mantle again, and he touches it on the water of the River Jordan, the water parts, and he crosses over on dry ground again. So there are, it's interesting that we talk about the parting of the Red Sea, but this parting of the water here twice by prophets of God is not nearly as well known. And the other prophets can see that the spirit of Elijah rests upon Elisha. So these other people there being as a witness to it give credence now to Elisha as a prophet of God. And these men, then these other people say, let us go search for Elijah's remains just in case they're scattered someplace. And he says, no, you can't do that. And they keep after him. And he finally says, okay, go. And of course they go and they don't find anything. And they come back having not found anything. And the first thing that we read about Elisha getting to this city, and the water is bad. So he tells them, to put some a new bowl and put some salt in it. And then he went and he put this into the spring of water, and the water was pure. So this is Elisha's first act of being God's messenger to the people. That the water has been, it said in verse 22, the water has been wholesome to this day, according to the word that Elisha spoke. And so here, God too is showing to the people that Elisha is now his messenger and speaks for him. And there were some, and then in chapter 3, we get into the war with Moab and how these two kings are going to go up against the Moab, and the people of Moab think, well, they're sleeping, and the Israelites have traveled several days through barren wasteland where there's no water, no food, and the soldiers are famished, and they come and they need sustenance. They need some water. And so they call for Elisha, son of Shaphat, and he comes, and God causes these ditches to form and have them filled with water for them and the men. And as the Moabite soldiers come, they see that water out there, and to them it looks like blood. So they think that the Israelites are all, going to be delivered into their hands. And they come down, and well, it goes the other way. The Moabite army is destroyed, and it, so we already in this book, we've seen a couple of kings have some problems. Elijah is now resting in the bosom of Abraham, or in the bosom of up in heaven that way with God, and Elisha now is his prophet for the Lord, but yet wars and things still happen. God is leading his people, and God continues to lead and guide and watch over us every day. Trust and believe.